Hi everyone, Frank Gambale here again, and I just wanted to do a follow-up video of the one where I'm bloody annoyed. We can call this I'm bloody annoyed too. I just wanted to firstly say that I was really impressed with all the comments. There's so much intelligence out there that I'm really delighted to see. A lot of very smart people and smart commentary. We need you. We need intelligent people. I wanted to address some of the comments as well because some of them prompts a response. And the one thing, there was one particular comment, the naysayers' points were often this one, that music, of course music's not as important as sciences or medicine, because you can't make a living at doing music necessarily, or it doesn't earn the same amount of money. Now, my response to that is that you're completely missing the point of music education. Music taps into the right brain. Now, it's well established the right brain is where ideas come from. I've always been fascinated by where does an idea come from? It's your right brain that is the imagination, the fantasy, the creative side of your brain. Left side is the shopping lists and numbers. But the thing that they've discovered in musicians' brains is the bridge. They used to think, it was just more right brain activity, but actually what's really going on is the bridge between the two hemispheres of the brain is much larger in musicians. That means ideas flow much more from the study of music. So it's not a question of how much money can you make as a musician. That's clearly absolutely not the point of studying music. Yes, you learn an appreciation for what great musicians actually have achieved in a lifetime, because anyone who's tried to learn a musical instrument will know the kind of hours and time needed to dedicate yourself to a great standard on any instrument. But that's not the point. The point of music education is that it enhances all human activity. And that means scientists, doctors, physicians, philosophers. It gives them a much greater access to the right brain. Ideas. Nothing moves in this world without ideas. And the study of music clearly gives much greater access to that side of your brain. So that's the point. It's not a question of, the other one is taxes, tax dollars. Okay. The thing that bugs me is definitely how governments spend our tax money. I know in Australia just recently put in a bid for, it was something like $80 billion for 2 atomic submarines. Now, I don't want to get political here, but $80 billion for 2 atomic submarines that will be delivered, and this money went to America, and for 2 subs that will be delivered in 2030. Now, if anybody knows Australia, it's an island continent. It's huge. So 2 subs patrolling the Australian coast is not going to do much to protect Australia, I can tell you that much. So there's 80 billion. Now, that's a lot of money. I remember when I was in the States, I lived there for 40 years, loved it. I have love and respect for all the musicians and people that I love over there. I'll remember when there was a stealth bomber that went down and the pilot ejected and the thing crashed and the pilot was safe. And this was just a training thing that he did, this pilot. Now, those planes, at least from my recollection, cost $2.2 billion each. And that just went up in a puff of smoke in a training exercise. And I thought, that's $2,200 million for one airplane. It's a very cool and incredible machine. There's no question of that. But what else could be done with $2,200 million? Perhaps a few of those dollars could go towards supporting some music education, or making education free, which is what it should be, really. Education should definitely be free. So, one more thing I wanted to talk about, and this is really important. This has got to do with my brother. My brother Nunzio, 25, almost 30 years ago, started a high-tech company, which is now worth something around $100 million and employs about 50 people. They have over 200 granted patents, and in fact they're so far ahead technologically that they have stopped putting in patents at all because there's no point. Nobody knows what they're doing and what they're up to. I'll put in a link to his company. It's called Locator, and it's a positioning system which replicates the constellation of satellites. Everybody's sending up satellites. Once the world discovered that America had control of GPS, they could switch it off at any moment. Europe sent up satellites, China sent up satellites, so did Russia and everyone else. And my brother's company, they have transmitters and receivers, and they can trace indoors and outdoors, which is something that's only science fiction with GPS. GPS does not work indoors. There's no way you could find, if I had a pen or a pick or my lens cap, and I threw it in a bush, GPS would never find it in 100 million years. But my brother's tech will do that, and it's coming, and his tech will enable, driverless cars truly, and a whole million other applications, because, it's going to be like the next utility, positioning, but specific positioning indoors and out. But the point I want to make is this. Both my brother, who's the business brain of the company, and his partner David Small is the physics genius that has been driving the technology, and all the other techs are just like, we're not worthy, He's truly a genius that has discovered and fixed problems that have existed for over 100 years that nobody's been able to figure out. So this is genius level as far as I'm concerned. And they are both ex-bass players. Check that out. They're both. My brother was the bass player in all the bands I was in before I left Australia. Massive companies are already looking into their tech. In fact, the Port of Los Angeles is running automated because of my brother's tech. All the cranes have this round, if you look closely, this round orb, which is their antenna that's completely patented. And these giant cranes with containers are all just moving like this beautiful orchestrated thing with no drivers. Okay, so anyway, the point I want to make, I'm getting to it, is that both bass players and the obstacles they came up against when they're trying to show this tech to regular scientists and physicians, and they're both musicians. So you can imagine people are going, this surely is a bunch of bull and it doesn't work. But it clearly does. They've given demonstrations at positioning conferences and trade shows. And people can't believe that it's being done right before their eyes, seeing positioning to centimeter accuracy. These guys have done it. And my brother I've had long conversations with him about this, and he says, we discovered so much of the tech because we, as musicians, look at things differently to scientists who expect a predictable outcome all the time. You know, like a drip, 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 or a frequency that's repeating. Well, a lot of their tech, you know, they measure light. Something that travels 186,000 miles a second. To get it to that, imagine what you have to do, what kind of tech to measure light to centimeter accuracy. Anyway, so they came across these discoveries because they saw things that were not constant, but moving. And the point was, as long as they were moving, these things were moving together, you can imagine a band. The timing of a band is not always constant. It can move. It's organic. It can go a little bit faster. It can go a little bit slower. But the band stays together. It's a group. You know, we sort of compensate for each other. Hey, you know, we're not machines. You know, things can fluctuate a little bit. And they made some huge discoveries because of this type of thinking, because they're musicians. That's the point I want to make. And they have a $100 million company that's going to go through the roof. And so that's it for everything I want to say about music and music education and the importance of it. Not whether you want a career in music, it's the way it makes your brain function differently. And the bridge between these two hemispheres, wow, it really is important. And why can't we spend some of this military money on free education? How about that? The next thing I post will be guitar. Okay, that's a wrap. That's all I want to say about this. Music education is extremely important. I can not emphasize that enough. And I hope the world catches up with it. It makes for smarter people. This is Frank Gambale. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here at my YouTube channel. Please help support this channel. Subscribe and drop a like, of course. And anything you can do to help support Frank Gambale, GuitarSchool.com is always appreciated.